Now we got these left-wing judges, trying to take Donald Trump's number one negotiating tool, which is tariff. So now they're calling them illegal and he can't do it. How's he going to negotiate if he doesn't have tariffs to use against other countries? It's crazy. On top of that, we got, what's his name? The mayor of New York, who's a communist, and he might be winning. So here we go. Trump said if he wins, it's going to be an ugly fight. He's really going to go against him. Let's take a look at Sunday morning futures. By the way, happy holiday weekend. Tomorrow is Monday, Labor Day. Everybody gets a day off or gets double pay. But let's take a look. By the way, my name is Noel here at Verbal on Life. Hopefully you enjoy the stream and give it a thumbs up. Let's try to get the likes up, right? And let's take a look at Sunday morning futures with Maria Bartiromo. And let's see what's the latest with Trump's having his tariffs taken off. Well, he's going to fight it. So let's see.
Including 7 new major trade deals. But now, one of the president's key tools in securing fair trade is in peril after a federal appeals court ruled his implementation of most of his tariffs is illegal, with the issue set to be taken all the way up to the Supreme Court. Coming up, White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing Peter Navarro is here on the immediate impact that the trade talks with China and beyond. Then, what did Joe Biden's aides know about the former president's mental fitness during his tenure in the Oval Office that was kept out of the public eye? House Oversight Committee Chairman, Congressman James Comer, will join us with the latest on his investigation into Joe Biden's use of the auto pen to issue a slew of pardons in the final weeks of his term, including for his son, Hunter Biden. Plus, President Trump's crackdown on crime in the nation's capital shows immediate results as he receives praise from Washington, D.C. Democrat Mayor Muriel Bowser for reducing crime. Tennessee Senator and gubernatorial candidate Marsha Blackburn is here on the president making the safety of Americans a top priority, from fighting crime to securing the southern border. Then, former Deputy National Security Advisor Victoria Coates will join us as President Trump's deadline for Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree to bilateral talks to end the war in Ukraine expires tomorrow. Plus, New York City may be on the brink of life under Big Brother as Democrat socialist Zohran Mamdani is the frontrunner to become the next mayor of the Big Apple as he vows to become President Trump's worst nightmare if elected.
What did you make of the New York Democrat primary? Mamdani.
He's a communist. I think it's very bad for New York. I don't know that he's going to get in. It's inconceivable that but he's a communist, and he's a pure communist. I think he admits it, but I can't imagine it. But let's say this. If he does get in, I'm going to be president, and he's going to have to do the right thing, or they're not getting any money. He's got to do the right thing.
Republican mayoral candidate Curtis Lewa is here on his version and vision of what New York City should look like. And also, what's at stake this November? It is all right here, right now, on Sunday Morning Futures.
Yeah. Let's see what Canada says.
We begin this Labor Day weekend with a federal appeals court in Washington putting up a roadblock to President Trump's efforts to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. amid national security and economic concerns. A panel of 11 judges ruled late on Friday that most of the global tariffs the president imposed are illegal because he exceeded his authority in implementing them. The ruling doesn't go into effect until October 14th, with the issue expected to be taken up by the Supreme Court. On Wednesday, President Trump doubled tariffs to 50% on imports from India for being a major purchaser of Russian oil as the president attempts to end the war in Ukraine. The world's number one buyer of Russian oil is China, and it's not facing immediate tariff hikes from the United States, with both sides trying to hammer out a new trade deal before President Trump's deadline of November 10th. Speaking on Fox Business's Mornings with Maria, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent explained why the Trump administration has dealt with Beijing differently than with other countries. Listen.
as we negotiate with the Chinese. As I've said before, it's a very complicated relationship we have. Our largest military rival is also the second largest economy in the world. It's also the largest U.S. deficit. So we are moving very deliberately on this. Both sides have approached it with great respect.
Joining me now in this Sunday morning Futures exclusive is White House Senior Counselor for Trade and Manufacturing, Peter Navarro. Peter, it's always great to see you. Good morning, and thank you for being here. Let's pick apart this ruling a little bit that came out late on Friday from the Federal Appeals Court in D.C., basically saying that most of Trump's tariffs are illegal, the reciprocal tariffs. It was a 7-4 decision. 6 in the majority were appointed by Democrat presidents. And the dissent obviously made its case, which would be that there is a national emergency to take care of here. President Trump took to Truth Social. He said that the decision was highly partisan. He said if these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. Walk us through the argument that's going to be made all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Sure, and the boss is always right. You're absolutely right, Jackie. This was weaponized partisan injustice at its worst. Politicians in black robes. You had 6 out of the 7 judges, Democrats, but you also had 12 blue states intervening against Trump. Most curiously, the 5 importers, very small companies, trying to preserve the right to import cheap Chinese crap mostly. If you follow the money, that road leads at least partly to the Koch network, the infamous and our favorite. It dealt with 3 major issues and some minor ones. I got a piece coming out in the Washington Times you can get the details on. But the questions are like, is there a national emergency? Of course, people are dying of fentanyl, and the trade deficit is like absolutely devastating to this country. The tariffs, this is like a semantic issue. Are tariffs qualifying as the regulation of imports? Of course they are. There's plenty of law on that. One of the red herrings they threw out for the majority was that somehow because they argued the tariffs were permanent. Hey, memo to the court. We never said they were permanent. You can't find Lutnick, Besant, Greer, or myself, or the president saying that. If China and the drug cartels from Mexico and Canada stop killing Americans tomorrow, tariffs go away. Ditto if the trade deficit went to 0. So the bottom line, Jackie, a very good dissent, provides a roadmap for the Supreme Court. We feel very optimistic. If we lose the case, President Trump is right. It will be the end of the United States.
And this is a multi-layered story, Peter, as you and I both know. So as we're talking about this decision playing out and the arguments that will be made, we're also looking at negotiations with India, that 50% tariff now being imposed on that country because it supports Russia essentially by buying that oil on the black market for cheap. But India is not the only offender. China is as well. Is the implementation of extra tariffs on India enough to choke Vladimir Putin?
Well, let's be clear. We have 50% tariffs now on India, but we also have a little over 50% tariffs on China. So there's a question is how much higher do you want to go without actually hurting ourselves? But let's talk about the India issue, because the only thing you have to know is that before Putin invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, India didn't buy Russian oil to speak of. Very, very small amounts. What happened? Well, the Russian refiners went in and got into bed with big oil in India. Putin gives Modi a discount on the crude. They refine it and they ship it to Europe, Africa, and Asia at a big premium. And they make a ton of money. Now, what's wrong with that picture? Well, it fuels the Russian war machine. India is nothing but a laundromat for the Kremlin. It kills Ukrainians. And what do we have to do as taxpayers? We got to send them more money so Ukraine can defend themselves. And on top of that, by the way, the 25% of the 50% is because India is the Maharaja of tariffs. They have the highest tariffs in the world. So they export us a bunch of stuff. They won't let us sell to them. So who gets hurt? Workers in America, taxpayers in America, Ukrainians in cities getting killed by Russian drones. So I would look. Modi's a great leader. I don't understand why he's getting to bed with Putin and Xi Jinping when he's the biggest democracy in the world. So I would just simply say to the Indian people, please understand what's going on here. You got Brahmins profiteering at the expense of the Indian people. We need that to stop.
Yeah, and we'll be watching that closely. Real quick on China, November 10th deadline for trade negotiations. Do you think that's realistic?
Yes, look, it's as Scotty Besson said, it's an ongoing negotiation. But let's remember this: we got over 50% tariffs on communist China, and that's a good thing.
Okay. You also wrote an opinion piece in The Federalist, and you were talking about the Federal Reserve. It's entitled, "Trump Was Right to Fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, and Here's Why." I love this quote at the end where you sum it up. You say, Cook's firing is about the paperwork. 2 mortgages, 2 states, 2 weeks apart, both allegedly marked as a primary residence. On the face of such alleged malfeasance, cause exists, and that is enough for a president to act while the courts resolve the rest. The lesson is simple. In public service, integrity is judged in real time, not deferred until a jury renders a verdict. Peter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And with respect to the president's ability to fire, of course he does. 2 words, Mark Calabria, a buddy of mine. He was at an independent agency. Biden comes in. He was appointed by Trump. Biden comes in, fired. They didn't even give cause for that. Here we've got a case of what appears to be apparent malfeasance. This is not a slap on the wrist thing, Jackie. I went to prison. Democrats put me in prison for defending the Constitution, and I was there. There's a couple of guys there who had similar kind of bank loan fraud. They were there for years. They had their assets forfeited, and they had burdensome restitution. What I think Lisa Cook...
Yes, you mentioned how you went to prison, the weaponization of government. You've got a book on the subject coming out. Tell us a little bit.
Sure. It's called I Went to Prison So You Won't Have to. It's a tagline from my speech at the Republican National Convention on behalf of Donald Trump. It's a book about my experiences in prison. If you want to know what that's like, read it. But it's also a love story about my sweet Pixie, my fiance, and how she did the time with me. And it's also a nice mystery story because I went in there and solved a $5 billion mystery. I'm actually getting $5 billion back for taxpayers because of the investigative reporting I did inside. So I went to prison so you won't have to. It's on Amazon. Book comes out just in the next couple of days. And I'd love to have the Fox community read this book and let me know what you think.
Incredible. We will be looking for it. Peter, so great to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks again, Jackie.
White House Senior Counselor, you too.
Great Labor Day. That man been through a lot. Like, I wonder why. He even went to jail. That's crazy. And a lot of people want to not listen to what he got to say about Lisa Cook. I mean, it just sounds real, like common sense. She broke the law. She should get fired. What's so hard about that?
For trade and manufacturing, Peter Navarro, thank you so much. All right, now let's get to this.
This is our message to Americans in Democrat-run cities nationwide. Decline is a choice. You don't have to live in constant fear of being robbed, raped, or murdered. Your leaders are lying to you, and they have been failing you for decades. The President Trump approach of upholding law and order by letting our brave men and women in blue actually do their jobs to aggressively fight crime works.
That's White House.
That's crazy. You know, Trump got to get the peace deal out of this. Or I'd get an award for saving cities. I grew up in Harlem, and that's a tough city. So to send in the military there to help, man, that would be amazing.
Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt on President Trump's crackdown on violent crime in Democrat-led cities. Since the president took over fighting crime in the nation's capital, there have been nearly 1,400 arrests, including of 12 known gang members. 5 missing children have been rescued and 140 firearms have been seized, all which D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says has led to a drop in crime. Joining me now with more on President Trump's crime-fighting initiative is Senator Marsha Blackburn, a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Good morning.
And Republican gubernatorial candidate in Tennessee as well. Good morning to you. Great to have you, Senator.
Good morning.
Let's talk
Thank
a
you.
little bit about this fight on crime, because the statistics tell us the president's efforts have been successful. Businesses are praising President Trump, saying the community is safer, it's easier for them to operate. Residents are praising him and saying that they feel safer walking around. But if you start to look at what the liberal media is saying, for example, in the Atlantic is saying the National Guard doesn't even know why the National Guard is in D.C. So already you've got the left jumping on this, saying it's not working, despite what we know to be true.
You know, Trump is the common sense party, just common sense, right? I want to hear some negative reports about anybody getting hurt by the National Guard being out there. And those are not the reports that you're hearing. You're hearing crime is going down. People can go outside. People can actually walk around with a jury on and not have to worry. Man, only the elite who don't live that life don't get it. But normal people get it.
And you're correct about that. The numbers don't lie. They tell the story of what is taking place. And also, if you talk to law enforcement officers that are on the ground in these blue cities, they will tell you they are appreciative for the backup. And look at what the citizens are saying. They feel safer. They are pleased that there is an enforcement and a presence. And President Donald Trump has been right on this from day one. And I think people are grateful to see this. Everyone wants their community safe. They want these gang leaders, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, apprehended and removed from their communities. They want to know that their kids are going to be safe. And these Democrat leaders that have pushed soft on crime policies, people that have tried to make heroes out of villains and villains out of law enforcement. It is so interesting to see now the citizens and many elected leaders are standing up and saying, way to go.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we have needed. Enforcement of the rule of law.
Yes.
And one of the overarching themes in the election was crime, public safety, the security of our southern border, and people coming in, causing havoc in this country. The president did a great job to respond to the needs of the American people who voted for him and shutting the border down. But there's also some tangential evidence now that those that have been deported, Senator, are trying to sneak their way back into this country. This is also coming as the president is cracking down on those who are overstaying, refusing to be deported, and the administration is imposing fines.
It's crazy that once they get deported, they realize how great America is. And look at them trying to sneak back in, because those who don't do anything to become resident after being here for what, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, they think that you just keep it going like that, not becoming resident, but then they get deported. It's a wake-up call
on those individuals. What are the next steps as we see a little bit of a resurgence or a pushback as people try to come back into the country to shut it?
The money in for increased enforcement at the southern border. Now, bear in mind, when Joe Biden was president, you had an average of about 160,000 illegal entries per month into the country. Under President Donald Trump, this is at the lowest levels ever. We have had weeks where there are zero that were able to enter into the United States. And it is important that we continue that enforcement to show this wasn't a surge and we backed away. But we, as the United States, are going to protect our borders. President Donald Trump is going to continue to make certain the border is secure, and we are going to handle deportations of those that have illegally entered the country. The Democrats tried for 4 years to make illegal legal, and President Trump was accurate when he said, we don't need new laws, we need a new president.
Yeah.
And he has enforced the law. He's enforcing it at the border. He's enforcing it in the communities. And the American people are cheering for the work he is doing.
Yeah, we don't need new laws. We need to enforce the laws that we have existing, which had totally fallen by the wayside. Senator, while I have you, you are a gubernatorial candidate for the great state of Tennessee.
With that said, shout out to my cousin. I got a couple of deported cousins who just failed to become citizens, who were here for years. And Jay Smith, my cousin, great guy, he became a great community member. Everybody loved him, but got into crimes. And Harington Sanchez, big shout out, man love, ended up getting deported and now realize how great America is. Living under fire, because the Dominican Republic has like a heat wave that hits it every year for like 4 to 5 months. Whew. Can't get an AC because there's no electricity. Water doesn't run every day, so they don't have no water, no electricity, and just burning. It's insane. Anybody who's in DR now is just stuck there. Not because they want to be there, it's because they're stuck. Let's be honest.
Kash Patel was on with Maria, FBI director, and he said this. He said, I didn't know this until my confirmation process, but Memphis, Tennessee is the homicide capital of America per capita. What would you do as governor to fight crime?
Yes, indeed. And I have so appreciated having Kash Patel and A.G. Bondi put the focus on Shelby County and Memphis, Tennessee. And the FBI is surging in that area. Law enforcement is grateful to have them. We are getting great results every single day. And what, as a governor, you can continue to do is to make certain that we fight illegal immigration, that we support our law enforcement, we apprehend those that are committing these crimes, and then that we make certain they do not re-enter our communities, putting an emphasis on juvenile crime, making certain that these individuals are going to be removed from these gangs that are wreaking havoc in so many of our communities.
Senator, it's a pleasure to see you and a pleasure to have you on the program. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Marsha Blackburn.
Again, thank you, Trump, for making these streets safer and deporting the illegal maniacs who don't know how to get a job, how to get a basic 9 to 5. So with that said, let's celebrate the fact that Jay Smith, Boxing on Jay, he made a YouTube channel called Boxing Center with Jay Smith. And it's like, yeah, you could have done that in America. Now you got to wait till the lights to come back on for you to stream your YouTube channel because you don't got a light 24/7. It's insane. Hate to make fun of the guy, but it is what it is. Enjoy.
Got it. Coming up, the latest on the House Oversight Committee's investigation into Joe Biden's mental fitness during his presidency with Chairman Congressman James Comer. But first, the frontrunner in New York City's mayoral race, Democrat socialist Zohran Mamdani, receives more than half of his campaign donations from outside New York State. The Republican candidate for New York City Mayor, Curtis Lewa, is here on his bid for Gracie Mansion amid outside forces pushing a socialist agenda. That is next.
I think a lot of the young adults in New York City are falling for that narrative that this mayor is going to be the best thing to happen in New York, when it's not true. This guy is like a nightmare about to hit New York. It's crazy.
They are socialists. It's Bernie Sanders, it's AOC, it's Assemblyman Mamdani. And classic socialists. New York City corporations are already high taxed, as are the individuals.
And what are schools doing? Not teaching what socialism is, how chaotic it is, and how it doesn't work. Like, schools are doing a bad job of teaching these kids to stay away from socialism. It doesn't work.
And I think it would be a death knell for New York City. And he is dangerous, frankly, for New York City.
Yep.
That's former New York governor and current New York City mayoral candidate Andrew Cuomo speaking with Maria last weekend on this program on the impact Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani's socialist policies would have on the Big Apple if he were to be elected mayor on November 4th. While Mamdani has secured the endorsements of progressives, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Senator Bernie Sanders, he has yet to receive the backing of New York's top Democrats, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senator Kristen Gillibrand.
These people know that socialism doesn't work. All right. Socialism is chaotic, especially if they move on to like federal election, like for the president of the United States. Everybody knows socialism doesn't work. So they better not say nothing positive about Mandami, or they're going to run that back in commercials later on. Because again, talk about socialism, you're talking about destruction.
And House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, also Governor Kathy Hochul. Joining me now on what's at stake for New York City's residents in this year's election is Republican mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa. He's the founder of the Guardian Angels. It's great to have you with us this morning, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, anytime.
Let me go ahead and start with some of these big Democrat endorsements from New York. Kathy Hochul. Kathy Hochul has been silent on this issue, in my view, because she can't back a socialist. The state relies on New York City for a substantial amount of revenue. If you drive more businesses out, if more taxpayers flee, New York is going to be in a lot of trouble. And I'm not just talking about the city.
Well, I must tell you, Kathy Hochul and her predecessor, Andrew Cuomo, who instituted no cash bail, which has caused a crime epidemic, they welcomed the socialists into the Democratic Party. They allowed the wolf to come into the chicken coop and take over their party. So now they distance themselves. It's too late. Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Gillibrand, you allowed this process to take place. Your Democratic Party is a socialist party, and I'm the only Republican. Because Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo.
I mean, the truth is, it's hard for a Republican to win in New York City. You know, I'm glad this guy's not wearing that red hat anymore, because pictures are worth 1,000 words. And New York City is a blue state. So this guy got to do his best to get elected, because Mandami is going to destroy the city. And I think he's the only one that has a chance, because the current mayor, he's going through some issues. I don't think he's going to make it. And then Cuomo got his own problem from before, when he used to be the state governor.
Zoran Light, they agree that illegals should vote. They agree in a sanctuary city. They agree in raising taxes. And they have never utilized any monies to hire police. I'm going to hire 7,000 police. We have a crime crisis going on. We have Eric Adams, the mayor, wants to have a gang summit with people who shot and killed people coming into Gracie Mansion. Andrew Cuomo is no cash bail Cuomo. He started this. And Zoran Mandami, he doesn't want to arrest anybody, not even on misdemeanors.
So look at that. Insane. All the Democratic Party is doing is giving away free stuff. All right? Free everything. Free the illegals, free the crimes. Just make things horrible.
Of felonies, and he wants to release criminals from prison. I'm the only law and order candidate.
Any kind of crime or assault in progress, a social worker will come, according to Mamdani, and take care of everything. But I'm glad you brought up Cuomo and the bail reforms, because in recent comments that he made last week, he was shifting some of the blame and trying to cover that up a little bit. And he was saying if Mamdani was to win, that all of a sudden you were going to have a Mayor Trump in New York City. And so he was using that fear-mongering tactic to say to people, you know, don't do this because that'll happen. But really what needs to be focused on is the issue. So we're talking about crime. We're talking about economics and public safety here in New York City. I mean, most reasonable people realize that, yes, we do have an affordability crisis, but the way a socialist wants to approach it is not the way to fix the problem.
Well, that's how Zoran won a Democratic primary convincingly against the favorite. Andrew Cuomo was exactly that, affordability, cost of living. Cuomo never addressed that. But now, if you notice of late, crime has risen. Blood is flowing in the streets of New York City. There are gang assaults on a regular basis. A 69-year-old elderly African-American grandmother was gunned down, and who clearly will cause people to flee New York City. But then again, under Governor Cuomo, no cash bail Cuomo, and Eric Adams, who has been a friend to the criminal and not to the police, people are already fleeing. I'm the only one who can improve and get them not to move by slashing their taxes, corporate taxes, property taxes, personal income taxes. None of them are talking about that. And I want to convince people who own homes not to put up the for sale sign and flee, but again, to join me to improve and not move, especially in the outer boroughs of blue-collar working-class people on this Labor Day holiday, which we honor them. And obviously, we want to keep them here.
You want to incentivize people to stay while the other party will just drive them out. But I want to ask you about the New York Post reporting on it's a little bit of an off the beat poll, but they're basically saying if everybody stays in the race, Adams, yourself, and Cuomo, that as a result of how it will all split, Mamdani will win. They say if Cuomo took him on head to head, Cuomo would win. Your thoughts on that poll, whether everybody
needs to get out.
Should stay in. Labor Day is the turning point for this race where it really heats up ahead of November. What's the plan? What is your strategy? And how are you going to combat some of the bling that's coming from the socialist camp?
Well, number one, that was a Cuomo paid for poll. He loses decisively in the primary, and we're supposed to believe he wins decisively against Mamdani. Number one, I've raised more money than Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams combined. $4 million. Average donation is $100. I am the people's candidate. I am the only other major party candidate. I'm the Republican candidate. Zorhan won the Democratic primary convincingly. So these two independents, Andrew No Cash Bail Cuomo and Eric Adams, let's meet with gangbangers at Gracie Mansion. Let them decide who should drop out. They're the independent candidates. I'm in it to protect law and order principles, hire more cops, and save this city, as Rudy Giuliani did, who was quickly followed by George Pataki, who unseated Mario Cuomo. We could have a 1-2 punch. Curtis Lee, Republican mayor, Elise Stefanik next year, Republican governor, will get this city and state back on track, and people will be able to be prosperous, they'll be safe, and they won't flee to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Tennessee, and parts unknown.
All right, so you're not going anywhere, sir. Great to see you this morning. Thank you.
What a time to be alive. To see a Republican win in this era, it would be amazing. I mean, we saw Trump win. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to do it, and yet he did it, a Republican. And now to see a Republican run in New York City, what a time to be alive. It's going to be crazy. But at this point, all we got is hope. To save the city, we need a tough guy on crime and on everything, like this guy. Most likely not going to win, but again, fingers crossed.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
That was New York City mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa. All right, up next, Undercover.
Destructive things from this era of Democrat leadership. They were more concerned about power here in the United States than making sure that the United States remained the #1 economic and military power on the globe. The Chinese made great gains under Democrat leadership, buying farmland in the United States, buying land next to key military installations in the United States. This is what was happening under the Democrat Party.
That's Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, a key member of the House Oversight Committee on the gains that Communist China made during the Biden administration as Democrats were fixated on President Trump. This week, the House Oversight Committee is set to continue its investigation into Joe Biden's mental fitness during his presidency, when former White House Deputy Assistant Andrew Bates sits down for an interview on Friday. Former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre and former White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients are also slated to appear before the committee in coming weeks. Joining me now with more on his investigation into former President Biden is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman James Comer. It's great to have you with us this morning. Welcome. I want to get the latest on the investigation, Congressman, but also what we've heard so far. Key figures taking the fifth. Key figures that day after day said that Biden was totally fit and ready to do the job, now saying they really didn't spend that much time with him. The testimony doesn't add up with what we saw. Something is awry here.
Yeah, something's definitely awry. Look, when you have Ian Sams, who was the face of the White House response to the very damaging report that said that Joe Biden was a forgetful old man. He was the face of the White House response to our investigation, Byron Donalds and myself, as well as all the members of the House Oversight Committee, when we found that China had, in fact, wired money to LLCs owned by Biden family members. He was the one that would always respond and say he talked to Joe Biden. Joe Biden was vibrant. Joe Biden did not do this. The family's innocent. And then come to find out when we put him under oath, He admits, well, I only saw Joe Biden 2 times over a 2-year period. That's unprecedented. We're trying to get to the bottom of who was operating the auto pen, and we've brought in a dozen people so far, and they're all pointing the fingers at other people. The ones that I think may have a little more knowledge, they pled the fifth to avoid self-incrimination. So I think what you're going
That sounds crazy. He saw him 2 times in 2 years. So yeah, I guess you could say those 2 times I saw him, he was great. He looked vibrant. But Jesus Christ, how can you take that man's word over anything? Crazy.
to see is unless Jean Pierre and some of these others come in and tell us more, it's becoming very apparent that Joe Biden really wasn't the one in command at the end of his presidency. And that's important because you're talking about thousands of pardons and dozens of executive orders that were signed with that auto pen, and it appears without President Biden's knowledge.
Absolutely. I want to move to this. 10 FBI whistleblowers, they warned of political weaponization, and they also say that they faced retaliation from the Biden administration. We've been talking about this weaponization as a theme. It touches so many different...
You know, back in the days, it was easy to get far in life, but just keeping your mouth shut. It looks like that's the game plan for the Democratic Party. Biden just kept his mouth shut, didn't have to show up to work, and then everybody was covering around him. I mean, that's what it seems, and I think more and more people are waking up and realizing that we had a president that really wasn't there, and goes to show that now one guy runs the whole presidency. It's a huge team. And then once they found out that Biden wasn't functioning, they did whatever the hell they wanted to. Or it just seems that way. But let me know what you think. Comment down below. My name is Noel. Give this video a thumbs up. Let's try to get more and more viewers to see this video because the truth is coming out little by little. All right. Now with Trump going one-on-one with the judges about implementing his tariffs, it's insane. Like, this is the number one negotiating tool that Trump has. He negotiates with other countries, he threatens them with tariff, and he ends up winning the negotiation. But now, if his tariffs are deemed illegal and he's not able to use them, man, we're living in some great times. So let's see, man. We're going into crazy, crazy events coming up. Happy Labor Day weekend. Tomorrow is Labor Day, so I think everybody that works on Labor Day should be getting paid time and a half or overtime for working on a holiday. But I'm going to try to create another video tomorrow because, hey, what are we talking about? I'm on every day, or at least I try to be, even though some people don't want me to be on here. So I want to give a shout out to Jay Smith. Go check him out. Huntington Sanchez, #1 deported streamers who gets to come on every time there's light in his house. Because in a third world country, electricity comes and goes. It is what it is. Just wish him well. With that said, what I'm going to do for today, I'm going to sell my couches for today. Hopefully it works out. They come and pick it up at 4 o'clock. And then after that, we're going to get to clean the house a little more. Remember the plan and never to give up. What am I talking about? My internet sucks. All right, you guys, thank you for watching. Those of you who stuck around, see you guys in the next video. Peace. Don't forget to hit the like.